and I didn't. Eventually, I ended up with somebody that's not athletic at all, which was a surprise to everybody. But of course, health is very important. We look at people and we select a mate by how healthy they are. I talked about pheromones last time. Of course, that is an aspect of it. It tells you about their immune system. The way that they smell will tell you about their immune system. Here, hold these for me. Do you need any more? Oh, he's eating lunch. You're not eating candy. You can eat your fish, that's okay. But if you need another one, they're right there. Okay. Okay, now this is really kind of interesting. As I said last time, as humans develop in the womb, one of the things that happens is the left side and the right side don't develop at the same time, at the same rate, and actually your face starts out as two halves that have to come together in the middle. So symmetry is really important. As long as the individual is fairly healthy throughout their pregnancy, the child will be symmetrical. The face will be symmetrical. The nose will be crooked. The eyes will be at the same level. The chin will be at the same level. You know, what I really should show you is somebody that is asymmetrical, somebody that's not symmetrical at all. Like Kyle, what is that guy? He's a country and western singer. Kyle Lovett. He used to be married to Julia Roberts. He was married to Julia Roberts. I forgot my drink again. I'm thirsty.
So Michelle, are you staying on campus this weekend?
No, I'm going home this weekend. I gotta go until 5 Saturday. I'm trying to get my contacts, my eye set.
Sorry, forgot my drink. So I interrupted their class. Paul's all upset. Okay, so what we're looking for is symmetry. So what should happen is if we put the left sides together, they should look exactly like if we put the right sides together. So that's what we're looking for, symmetry in somebody's face. The more symmetrical they are, the more attractive they should be to us. This is Paris Hilton. And as you can see, if we look at her face, it looks almost identical to her left symmetry and her right symmetry. Isn't that amazing? If you think about it, because that's almost impossible. But here we have a woman that looks, I think that's Paris Hilton. Anyway, she's almost perfectly symmetrical. This is Brad Pitt, of course. Brad Pitt, whether you think he's handsome or not, it's not as important as the fact that his symmetry is fairly good. He looks just about the same in his left half, if we put his left halves together, or his right halves together. So he's almost perfectly symmetrical. Another person that's perfectly symmetrical is Denzel Washington. And that may be one of the reasons why he is such a popular actor. Bilateral symmetry is an indicator of developmental stability. In other words, while the person was pregnant, they were taking care of themselves, they ate well, and for that reason, of course, the two halves of the face were able to match together fairly well. Given ideal growing conditions, and organisms' right and left sides will develop identically, and in these two cases, that's almost exactly what we see. So his left symmetry and his right symmetry, his left symmetry and his right symmetry are almost exactly the same. But hers it's actually identical. And that's the way it's supposed to be. So is symmetry really important? Is that really what we're looking for when we select a mate? Are we selecting people by how symmetrical their face is? Well, some cultures, it's very real. The Hadza of Tanzania look for symmetry. They're a hunter-gatherer group, and symmetry is extremely important to this population. So the more symmetrical the face, the more likely they will select them as a mate. There is evidence that people prefer symmetrical faces more than asymmetrical ones, and it has been found in all cultures studied. So it's not just the Hazda, it's not just people in the United States, it's not just the Europeans, but it's all cultures. It's the Japanese, it's the Chinese, it's all the cultures around the world. Symmetry seems to be one of the factors that they use to select mates. A third characteristic of attractive faces is that they tend to be average. The more average they are, the more, there you go, Jeff, you're in good shape because you're pretty damn average. Anyway, exactly. If they have average facial features, we see it as a positive. They did a study where they took people's facial features and they mixed them together. They asked they asked people later if that was attractive. Well, when they did that with women, took an average of all of their facial features, the men thought that the average one was the most attractive one. Now, strangely enough, when they did the same thing with a man's face, and they asked women if they found it attractive, the answer was no. They were looking for something distinctive. So they found more distinctive faces, not average faces, as more attractive than an average face. So men are looking for average faces. So if we look at the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, where they have new models coming in every year, the reality is Kate Upton, is that her name? I think that's her name. Anyway, all of these swimsuit models, the reality is that the reason that men find them attractive is potentially it's because of their body parts. We're going to talk about body parts in just a second. But their faces, why do they find their faces attractive? Well, because they're average faces, and that's what men are looking for. They're looking for average. Of these, if we put these two together, and this face together, the average faces should be more attractive than the original faces. So this face should be more attractive than this face. This face should be more attractive than this face. With men, this face should be more attractive than this face, and that face should be more attractive than that face. With women, this face or for men, this face should be more attractive. Well, that one doesn't work. That's not exactly what they were doing in that picture. Now this is really kind of bizarre. Men are looking for women who have baby faces, and that's known as neoteny. So what they want, they want women with youthful features. Now why in the world would they want women with youthful features? Why wouldn't they want a woman who looks mature, like she's got knowledge of how to do things? Why would they look for youth? Why is youth important? When is a woman able to reproduce? The younger she is, the more likely she is. Yeah. As long as she's gone through puberty, then she's more likely to be able to reproduce. If we look at a woman's face right out of high school, when she is, in essence, she's right in the middle of her reproductive years, it's usually a little bit fuller. She has high cheekbones. She's probably tall. She hasn't gained any mass yet. She's not large. Her hips aren't quite as wide as they should be. So men, potentially, that's what they're looking for. Men are looking for young-looking women, whether they're old or whether they're young. The age isn't as important as the way that they look. So a model that has been able to model into her 40s and 50s as an attractive individual, the reason that they are able to do that is because they have a young-looking face. It's a little bit fuller. She's got high cheekbones. She's got a tiny, small chin. She's got full lips. And as long as she can maintain that throughout her career, then she will be seen as youthful. If we can talk about just about any actress. Normally, they play a woman that's younger than they are. A good example would be the movie Bend It Like Beckham, which you guys haven't seen, probably. I watch it because it's a soccer movie. But the female lead in that movie looks like a teenage girl, but she's actually 25 years old. But she looks like a really young girl. She's supposed to be a high school girl that has just graduated from high school and is starting college. But she's actually 25 years old when she made the movie. Keira Knightley's in that movie. Of course, Keira Knightley has very small features, relatively small features, but she was older than that. She was 21 years old when she made the movie. So normally we are looking at, and especially in the movies, we're looking at a woman that's younger than the part that they're playing. And men are looking for women that are younger because they're looking for reproductive potential. That's what they're looking for. So a lady that starts taking steroids and gets a masculine face at a relatively young age, she'll have a difficult time. She'll look older than she actually is. And for that reason, she'll have a difficult time attracting a male.
Do they actually look for a woman who's reproductive consciously or unconsciously? Or, I mean, do they actually know that they're looking for someone who's reproductive?
Oh, you mean the male does
Yeah.
the male know that? No, probably not. As a matter of fact, a lot of men are dating women just to have sex rather than to reproduce. They're really not looking for babies, they're looking for action. Men are kind of goofy that way. I know there's something wrong with men. Okay, so what are women looking for in men? The answer is they're looking for masculine faces. So what is a masculine face? Well, it looks more mature. Whereas a male is looking for a baby face, a woman is looking for a masculine face. She's looking for a mature face. So what is a mature face? How do we know if somebody is mature? We know if somebody's mature if they have a prominent chin. The cheekbones are not really as important as the fact that potentially they have facial hair. This is really kind of interesting because people are growing a lot more facial hair now than they ever have before. Well, why in the world would they do that? Is that sexy? Why? And if it is sexy, why is it sexy?
It's the trend right now.
It is the trend right now, but as we're looking at these pictures, we have three men with everybody's got a man bun, but and that's the reason this picture was taken, or they put all these pictures together, because they all have man buns. But three of them have beards and three of them don't have any facial hair at all. Well, he does a little bit. Well, they all do. You can see their 5 o'clock shadow. Is that important? Well, sure it is. Because as you go through puberty, as a male goes through puberty, he gets more facial hair. His facial hair becomes more prominent. So one of the ways that he can demonstrate his masculinity either by growing a beard or by having at least 5 o'clock shadow, so that people can see that he is old enough to shave. Now this is really kind of interesting because people with blonde hair, and all these individuals, actually this guy does have blonde hair. This is one of the Hemsworth brothers. But blondes don't show facial hair nearly as well as people with black hair do. So why don't we see a lot more native guys with facial hair?
They can't grow it.
Yeah, no, they can't. They can't. It's too spotty. If we look at Leonardo DiCaprio, who's Italian, of course, but we can see he's got a full beard. It's all over his face. I don't know who this guy is, but he's got a full beard as well. This is the guy that was in what was it? What was that movie? I can't remember. Anyway, he's got black hair. He's got a full, all over their faces. Orlando Bloom is only growing hair down here on his chin. And he's got a little bit of a mustache growing there. But yeah, I'm the same way. I can't grow hair, facial hair either. My hair doesn't grow down here. It just grows along my jawline.
I think if Native men have a mixture of a different race, they grow it because
okay.
my husband, he's just completely hairy. I mean, he can't,
Is he full-blooded Navajo?
well, he said he was Nakai Dene, which is Mexican clan.
Right.
And so I thought he was Mexican, but he said he's full-blooded Navajo, but he's a Mexican clan.
And natives aren't hairy like that.
I
I
know.
So somebody's a liar. Not really. If he's not Nakai Dene, you're Nakai. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you got a Mexican ancestry as well. That's maybe what was attracted, why he was attracted to you, because. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't know about these things. I know why I married the people that I married. Okay. And it's because they look like me, that's why. People with average size features are less likely to have genetic abnormalities than people with deviant features. So if you have a long nose or a big lower lip. Once upon a time in Europe, all the Austrian royal family had a big lower lip. It was called the Habsburg lips because they were Habsburg. Anyway, they had a big lower lip. Just the lower lip. The upper lip was normal shape, but the lower lip was this great big massive flesh. So they walked around with their lips stuck up like this, and they were Habsburgs. Anyway, so that's something that's deviant, right? Most people don't have large lower lips. Lips are important. Full lips mean something. Tiny little lips mean something as well. It's just a physical feature. So the question is, what's deviant and what's not deviant? If you go into a culture, what you're looking for is somebody that's average, and you will find them more attractive. No deviant features, no large noses, no tiny little eyes, no eyes that are really close together. That's what you're looking for. If you would go to China, the people in China have what they call epicanthic folds. They have a layer of fat underneath their eyelid. And because of that, their eyes look squinty. And of course, somebody on the Astros team got in trouble for going like this to the Japanese pitcher. Yeah, what an idiot. And now he's got to sit out the first 10 games of next season. What a dummy. Idiot. Huh?
Oh, I said for real? That happened?
Yeah, that happened. Oh, what an idiot. He hit a home run off a pitcher from Japan. And when he went into and the strange thing is he played ball in Japan. That's the weird thing. I know, so he should be a little bit more sensitive. But when he went into the dugout, he went like this to the pitcher, just to show him up, making fun of him. I know, stupid. Now the funny thing is, if you look at the pitcher, it's Hugh Darvish was the pitcher, Hugh Darvish. Yeah, but Hugh Darvish is half white. So he doesn't have Japanese features. That's the funny. No, it's not that funny, I guess. The stupid thing. Humans can quickly process something that resembles a prototype and quick processing is associated with good feelings and feelings of attraction. So if I know somebody and if we're walking down the sidewalk and I recognize you, I'm going to have my blood pressure is going to change. I'm going to recognize you, and therefore I will feel better about seeing you. If I see somebody that I don't know, if I'm walking down the sidewalk and I see somebody I don't know, my blood pressure is going to be raised, and I'm not going to have as positive feelings about you as I would somebody that I know. Does that make sense? Okay, and then a lot of it has to do with danger. Danger, Will Robinson. If I recognize you, then I know that there's no danger. I have had interactions with you before, and you didn't attack me. But if I have never seen you before, then there's always a possibility that you're going to go off on me and try to kill me. Well, not really, but anthropologically, of course, this was a danger. So when the different tribes of natives in the Americas, when they got together, when they got close to each other, of course, they were wearing different clothes, and because they were wearing different clothes, there was always a danger of attack, and of course, that was part of the friction between the tribes. That make sense? Okay. Or not. Okay, so what we're looking for is average. What we're looking for is familiar. We're looking for a prototype. So we're trying to see a prototypical face. What is a, did you see the face of the guy that ran into the bicyclists in New York City?
Yeah.
Okay, he's got a very, I can't get the internet here, I don't think. Or I'd show you a picture of it. Do I have the internet? I don't. Okay, I don't have the internet. I can't get at the internet in this room. I apologize. He's a man. He's Middle Eastern, and he has not really a shaved head, but he has short hair on top, and he's got this full black beard. I know, it's kind of, who does that? Well, evidently a terrorist does that. So he looks relatively negative. Oops, there we go. Okay. So what we're looking for in an individual is a prototype. And if we recognize the prototype, we're less likely to be afraid of them because we know people that look like that. And if we know people that look like that and they didn't attack us, then we don't see this person as a danger. When researchers started mixing the facial features of different racial groups, they discovered that people found the results more attractive than the pure racial groups. The opposite sex found faces of the Eurasian and biracial faces most attractive of all. One of the most popular actresses in the United States is Halle Berry. Any movie that she's in, the guys just drool while she's on screen. Why? Well, she's part black and she's part white. She's mixed. But what if she was 100% black? What if she's 100% African rather than her mother's Italian? And you can see her facial features are soft, are relatively soft. And for that reason, she's considered one of the most beautiful women in the world. This is another lady of mixed race, and I can't remember her name or the mixture, but she's also of mixed race. One of the most beautiful women I've ever met was a Vietnamese lady whose father was French. I went through basic training with her. Well, kind of. At that time, they didn't. There wasn't any co-ed basic training. But we trained together as we were medics, and we trained together as medics, which was kind of interesting. She was so attractive that she was almost blinding. You couldn't look at her for very long. She was that attractive. But she was the most beautiful woman I've ever met. I got paired up with her one time. We were going through the obstacle course, and I got paired up with her, and we were both, she's like this tall, and I'm this tall, so it was kind of hard. We had to pull ourselves up and stuff like that. And she was, her arm strength wasn't very good, so I always had to pull myself up, and then I had to reach down and pull her up. But it was fun. I had a good time. Now here's the funny thing. I would never talk to her. Not that I couldn't say anything. I wasn't struck dumb by her beauty. That wasn't the situation. But if we had been in a dating situation, this was certainly not a dating situation. But this was a dangerous situation actually. We could have injured ourselves. But if we had been in a situation where I could have talked to her, I would not have talked to her because she was too attractive. And that's known as the Miss America syndrome, where if somebody is too attractive, then men tend to not pay attention. They do pay attention to them, but they don't try to interact with them because they're afraid of them. They're afraid of being rejected, and that's known as the Miss America syndrome. So if there's somebody that's extremely attractive, and we see this with actresses from time to time, if they don't marry other actors, they marry this real goofy-looking director, somebody with money. Why? Because when you have money, of course, then you're willing to interact with somebody that's that attractive. But if you don't have any money, and you're not as attractive as they are, then you're less likely to try to interact with them. Does all that make sense? In order for me to keep my spouse, I need to marry somebody that is at the same level of attractiveness as I am. Otherwise, they're going to wander off and find somebody more attractive than me. If I'm a 2 and they're a 3, then I'm going to lose that person. If other people hit on my significant other, and this happened to me with my second wife. There was something about my second wife. She was attractive, but she was sexy. That was the part that drove me crazy, because men would just hit on her because she looked sexy. So men would would hit on her, but she wasn't especially attractive, she's just sexy.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so say a guy just turned like 42 or around in his 40s. We kind
42 and a half?
Huh? Well,
Just kidding.
he's kind of like going through maybe male menopause.
Sure.
Okay. His wife that he was with for 16 years is like 10 years older than him.
Okay.
And, you know, she's still really pretty and everything, but, you know, she's like 55.
Okay.
Okay, so one day he just packs up and moves out.
Okay.
And he gets with a street person. If a guy is looking for somebody sexy or, you know, and this person has no eyebrows or anything, you know, I mean, like,
Oh, that's hot.
yeah. I mean, like, how is he, does he need counseling?
No, okay, so let's deal with why he left his wife to begin with. Why did he leave his wife?
Well, he said that she was trying to kill him because he was just getting fatter and fatter and fatter. And the
She
both
didn't
of them, you know, they got really big. And I think it was like, I don't want to say this, but I think it was like lack of sex.
Okay,
So, yeah.
actually, sex is important, isn't it?
But I mean, he's like 400 pounds, you know.
Sex is important, and he needs to feel, I mean, if that's male ego, sorry. It's male ego. So if she's 10 years older than him, she's already gone through menopause, right? So her sex drive has decreased. Male sex drive tends to be stronger than female sex drive. So we got somebody that's 10 years older. What's the probability that she wants to have sex as much as he does? Well, even if they're the same age, there's still a conflict.
But I mean, you know, like if we're
So that's why he left.
attracted to somebody who compares to us and looks
Right.
like us, like a prototype,
Sure.
you know, why stoop low and, well, I shouldn't say low, but why, like, just find somebody off the street and start taking care of them and, you know.
If you weigh 400 pounds, then what's the probability you're gonna run away with this lady?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know, we all know our level of attractiveness.
Mhm.
Okay. And we all recognize that. So we assume that, so when we recognize that, he weighs 400 pounds, so he doesn't think he's attracted to anybody that's really attractive. So who does he hook up with? He hooks up with a street person who needs his money more than anything else. And potentially she's willing to have sex with him. No matter what her age is, because he's willing to take care of her.
Yeah, she's
He sees himself so ugly that that's the person he chose. So does he need counseling? No. No, unless you want to try to convince him that he's more attractive than he really is.
So it's insecurity?
Insecurity, of course. And I mean, that's the essence of the male ego.
So my SON DAD is on his third GF in the past year. Is that like an insecurity thing?
Yeah. Yeah. And probably, you know, it's hard to say. I mean, if they were all at the same level of attractiveness, then that's one thing. But probably he's bounced either down or up.
I think he's just trying to find me and somebody. Just kidding.
Yeah, well, so we all try to do the best that we possibly can. We're all looking for the perfect mate. So theoretically, we should select somebody at our own level of attractiveness, right? But if we can marry somebody that's more attractive than us, who's willing to marry us or to be with us, then of course we'll go up. But at the same time, we still have the low self-esteem because we know how attractive we are. This is what happened with my second wife. She didn't think she was attractive. She was moderately attractive, but she was sexy. You know, and that's an aspect as well. She exuded sex. It was the oddest thing in the world. She could, and of course this is in the military, so she's around guys all the time. There's all these guys. And it was like Penny on Big Bang Theory. If you've ever watched Big Bang, you know, Leonard could be standing right beside her and guys would hit on her. That's what Leonard complained about that over and over and over again. Well, that's exactly what happened with me and my second wife. She exuded this sexuality, and it didn't matter whether she wanted to be with me, and she was with me. I mean, it didn't really matter, but because the guys would just not leave her alone. They wouldn't leave her alone. And there was a reason for that, and I won't go into that reason. But the reason had to do with her physical attributes. Because she was slender-hipped and she was full-chested. There you go, I can say that. Whatever that means. And she was relatively attractive in the face. So guys saw her as sexy. Yeah, sexy. And of course since she considered herself not very attractive, she was really open with people. And men saw that as her being sexually available. And she couldn't help herself. I mean, that's just the way. She grew up without, when she was in high school, she was treated relatively poorly because she grew up poor. She was relatively poor. Not only that, but she didn't fill out until she graduated from high school. Then all of a sudden she filled out. So, yeah, it was really kind of a strange situation.
I have one more question.
Yes.
So if a guy is married to, like, say, a fairly attractive lady, and he always cheats on her with ugly women, does that mean he's got low self-esteem?
He still has low self-esteem, yeah.
And insecurities?
Yeah, he thinks that, is she more attractive than he is?
No.
Is he more attractive than she is?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So because he can. He married down. And since he married down,
Oh, wait. No, the lady that he married is more attractive than he is.
okay. So he feels like, well, she's going to leave me anyway. So I will have affairs to show her because I can't keep her anyway because she's too attractive for me.
Oh.
So the women that he has affairs with are probably either at his level or at her level. Because it's his ego. He's trying to fulfill this need because he feels that she is too attractive for him and that he can't keep her. So that's why he's able to do that. Either that or he's wealthy. And is that it? Does he have a lot of money?
No.
Anyway, as much fun as that is. So we're talking about people of mixed race. And here, of course, are two people of mixed race. Shamar Moore, his mother's white and his father is black. Keanu Reeves, his grandfather is Chinese. And of course, both of these individuals are considered extremely attractive by women. Keanu Reeves is actually Canadian. Of course, Canadians and Americans kind of look alike. White Canadians and white Americans look alike. Anyway, Shamar Moore has scored himself a new television show that started last night. I think SWAT was on last night. Or maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it's on tonight, I don't know. Anyway, Shamar Moore is considered attractive, as is Keanu Reeves. It is not certain why multiracial faces are perceived as attractive. One account is that people should be attracted to genetic diversity as a marker of healthy genes, and that is true. If a gene structure is repeated too many times, then potentially you're going to start having abnormalities. And of course, this is something that we try to stay away from. You've talked about the Hutterites coming onto the reservation and trying to reproduce with Blackfeet men. Yeah. Why would they do that? Well, the reality is that the Hutterites only have 11 different racial genetic structures because they came from 11 different men. That's it. There's only 11 of them. And if you notice, if you wander around Hutterite country, there's the Hofers, there's there's only 11 names. So there will be a whole colony of Hofers. As a matter of fact, just north of Harlem is the Harlem colony. And the Harlem colony are all named Hofer. Every damn single one of them is named Hofer. And then you go up to Turner, which is right on the Canadian border, and they're all Hofers.
You know what, back home we pick black or Salisbury's and choke cherries.
Sure.
I don't know if they do too, and then we have dry meat and everything. Well, the other day my cousin posted on Facebook, he said, I just seen the damnedest thing. I seen a whole bunch of Hooterites selling Salisbury's, choke cherries, and dry meat. And I was like, what is wrong with this picture,
Right, exactly.
I was just laughing because that was so crazy.
Choke cherry soup, I guess, is real popular up on Fort Belknap. They always have choke cherry soup. It's a little sweet for me. I think of soup and I think of salt. So,
I have the seeds right here. I'm gonna
What,
plant
choke
these
cherries?
over at Land Grant today.
oh, okay. Well, good luck with that.
And see if they'll grow. You're supposed to plant them like in this time of the season.
Yeah, but this is high desert.
Well, I know, but we'll see.
Okay.
Experiment time.
I wish you luck.
Thank you.
It may get too hot here. I mean, if they grow up in Montana where it's god-awful cold in the wintertime, then it may not get cold enough here. I don't know. Or they may just explode and this whole area may be covered with choke cherry bushes, which could be exciting. I know, the Hutterites will come on Fort Belknap, the college campus has a bunch of choke cherry trees. And as soon as they ripen, the Hutterites are all over. And all the natives are going, what the hell's going on? What are you doing? And they always come out when all the kids are in class, and they come out to pick all the choke cherries. Not funny. Multiracial represents the best average of all the faces and the faces have encountered in their lives, of course. So we're looking for somebody, potentially we're looking for somebody of another race to diversify our own bloodline. The reality is that this happened in the native communities pre-Columbian all the time. Some tribes would capture women, some would buy women, some would, anyway, they're trying to diversify their own bloodline. And of course, the whole clan system has to do with genetics. That's why the clan system exists. How many original clans were there? 11? 10 or 11? Isn't that what?
I think it's 11.
11?
I think it's four
Four?
major groups and a bunch of like
Small groups.
4? So how many clans are there now? 126? I think that's the number I saw, or maybe 127. Yeah. Right. So how in the world can you expand from 4 to 120, whatever? 127. Nakai, Dene. Right? I have a friend that was telling me that his ancestry is one of the Pueblos. And when they were taken to Bosque Redondo, his family, when they came back, instead of coming directly back, they stayed at a Pueblo, and they were welcomed in, and they mixed with that group. So his ancestors are mixed with that Pueblo. It's not the Acoma Pueblo. That's one just south of Santa Fe. So his clan is that Pueblo Dene, meaning that they're mixed. So the reality is, and even among the Dene, of course, there's been a lot of mixing with other groups. Nakai, that Pueblo, I don't know any of the clan names, but of course, there's the Salt Clan and the Salt River Clan, and this may have something to do with another group of individuals that actually live there. Maybe a Pueblo group. Are there any Apaches?
Yes, there's a lot of
Well, let's not even talk about that. But, you know, that's a possibility as well. So everybody was mixing. The same thing with the Blackfeet, of course. You've got what you say, pagan. They say pagan, but that's not important. And potentially you were mixing with the Atsanan, with your other allies, the Grovon.
We were mixing too with like the French tradesmen.
We.
Yeah.
Right.
The Irish, like my mom was telling me that her grandma or her mom's dad is a Irish British tradesman, and he left my grandma, who's a full-blooded Blackfeet, and when he left her, he went and married a different Blackfeet lady.
Oh, really?
So when my grandma was born, my grandma didn't inherit any land because of her dad and how he was. So on my mom's side, we're landless.
Well, Michelle's last name's Buck. Where did that name come from?
Colonel, the army.
Army
They're
colonel.
there.
He was an English colonel, yeah. He's an Englishman. I know, as cool as that is. Conrad told me that story.
What about Sutton? Where'd that come from?
German. So it says,
Sehr gut.
yeah, so it's apparently German, but I've asked around the family and they didn't really know what the whole name was, but it seems German, so I'm like, okay.
One of the most popular names on Fort Belknap Reservation is Work, W-E-R-K. It's a German word for work, as odd as that is. And there were a group of German brothers that came, that moved to that area and married Grovant women. And so it's a Grovant name. Another one is Doni, which is French, by the way. And there's Donis on both sides. So those crazy French Donis.
And they're really light complected with the leaves,
Yeah.
like green, bluish eyes.
As bizarre as all that sounds. Okay, so the reality is that nobody's pure, okay? We're all mixed with something. Even my ancestors, even though they're all Western European, some of them are German, some of them are French, some of them are Belgian, some of them are English, lots of Englishmen. Anyway, I guess we're lucky that our genes didn't screw up or something. The attractiveness of average features does not seem to generalize well to perceptions of bodies. It does not seem to be true that people are most attractive to those of average weight, height, and muscle mass, breast and hip size. They're looking for something. They're looking for something else. So while in facial features we're looking for an average feature, when we're looking at body shapes, we're not. We're looking for somebody tall. We're looking for somebody muscular. We're looking for somebody with a large chest. There are men that are attracted to legs. There are men that are attracted to derrieres. There are men that are attracted to chests. There are men that are attracted to eyes. I mean, it's just really bizarre. But the reality is that we're looking for something specific. And it isn't something average. We're looking for something potentially extreme. Why is Dolly Parton so popular? Is it because of her hair?
No.
Could it possibly be her hair?
No.
Maybe it's her voice. It sounds like a little girl's voice. So maybe that's what makes her attractive.
It is her breasts.
Her breasts, okay. Probably her chest. Men are attracted to her chest. So women, of course, you guys aren't the same way. You're not looking for muscles, you're not looking for height, right? You're looking for average looking men with average sizes. You're looking for men with relatively narrow shoulders and a normal looking chest, not guys that pump iron all the time. That's not what you're looking for. You're not looking for height, you're not looking for, yes you are. That's exactly what you're looking for. The kinds of bodies that tend to be seen as most attractive are often those that depart considerably from the average, of course. You're looking for muscular men, you're looking for tall men, you're looking for whatever. And of course men, there aren't any better because we're looking for women with select attributes, long legs, baby got back, whatever. What does that know? I know what that means. However, if we lived in Africa, especially in West Africa, women who are relatively plump are seen as more attractive than women that are slender. And the reason is because women who are plump are healthier. They look healthier as far as they're concerned. So whereas in among the Maasai, those very tall and slender individuals, or in Ethiopia or Somalia where they're tall and slender, a man from West Africa would not be attracted to that woman. He would be attracted to this woman who is able to maintain her body mass. So plump people are considered to be a lot more attractive.
It probably means they're rich too, or not rich, but wealthy.
But wealthy enough to eat,
Yeah.
to be fat. Yes, you are absolutely correct. Within the United States, African Americans have heavier ideal body weights than European Americans, and they feel less social pressure toward thinness. And of course, this is a picture of a group of African American women, and as you can see, some of them look relatively plump, but none of them look slender. None of them look especially slender. And when we were looking at, what were we looking at? There we go, yeah. When we were looking at Neoteny, when we were looking at the lady with small features, of course an African American male would not be attracted to bony macaroni here. He'd be looking for somebody with a little bit more meat on their bones. A baby with back. One of my favorite songs of all time. Another aspect of interpersonal attraction is the propinquity effect. People are more likely to become friends with people with whom they frequently interact. So when you went to high school, of course high school is a special case. You're just finishing with your puberty, but your first job, potentially your first job, the individuals that you were interacting with, possibly those are the individuals that you found attractive. Those are the people that you would be more likely to have something to do with. I married my high school sweetheart. Then I married somebody that worked in the same building that I did. She was a dental tech. Then I married a lady that was my boss. So I had propinquity was huge as far as I'm concerned.
So opposites attract isn't really...
Not normal.
It's not normal?
Yeah.
Is it curious?
That's real. No, we're not attracted to people that aren't like us. We're attracted to people that are like us. So if we wander around looking at couples, the oddity is a woman that marries somebody that's not like her. That's the oddity. Most men and women marry somebody just like them. They marry somebody that they interact with. And if we do have a situation where opposites attract, it's either an act of rebellion on one of their cases, one of them is actually rebelling, or we've got a situation where they were together, propinquity, because they were in close proximity with each other, that was the most likely person for them to have anything to do with. So it's not normal. Well, normal is not the right word. It's not average. So if we look at most people, they hooked up with somebody who was almost their identical twin. It's just the way it works. If we look at hair color, this is really kind of crazy. Blondes marry blondes, brunettes marry brunettes, redheads marry redheads. Isn't that bizarre? My mother had red to brown hair. Her hair was brown later on, but her hair was red when she was a child. My dad's hair was blonde when he was a child, and it was blonde until he went to war. And when he went overseas, his hair turned black. It was the oddest thing. My poor dad. So he came back. He left with blonde hair, and he came back from war two and a half years later with black hair. So he went all the way through World War II, and something happened to him during the war. Some people, when they get scared, their hair turns white. But as far as my dad was concerned, his hair turned black. he became more mature. And I don't know, the hormones, the testosterone, something made his hair black. But I have 5 brothers and sisters, and none of us have black hair. My hair was the same color his was before he went off to war. But his hair actually turned black because of his combat situation. Okay, we've done studies with this. Propinquity. This is really important. The people that you're closest to, if you sit beside somebody, there you are sitting beside your son, that's important. The people that you sit beside are the people that are more likely to be your friends. I know. Way to go, Joe. You got no friends. No. Oh, you got an imaginary friend. That's so cute.
So we're all friendless.
Yeah, you're all friendly. Well, not Michelle. She's got a buddy over there. That's her buddy. Researchers looked at friendship patterns that developed in a police academy. The simple fact of who stood next to whom was more important in influencing people, police recruits' selection of friends than their personalities, their backgrounds, and their religious beliefs. All they had to do was stand beside this guy. That's it. So the closer you are to people, and it doesn't have, I'm not talking about emotional closeness, I'm talking about physical closeness. The closer you are to people, the more likely that that person will become your friend. Marius is a friend of mine. Marius's office is right next to mine. I know lots of people on campus. I talk to Marius more than I talk to anybody. Why? Well, he's right next door. I don't have to leave the building to find him. I don't have to go upstairs to talk to him. He's right, and he walks past my door all the time. His office is farther down the hall. So he has to walk past my office. And usually, when he walks past my office, he says something. Now we're friends. Why? Because we're right next to each other. And all you have to do is be next to each other. It doesn't really, race doesn't have anything to do with it. Personality doesn't have anything to do with it. Religion doesn't have anything to do with it. It's who is next to you. That's it. I know. So if you want to be friends with somebody, just sit right next to them. Be close to them. Every chance you get. And that's all you need to do. And eventually you'll start talking, and eventually you'll become friends.
What if they look at you like you're all weird?
I'm sorry?
What if they look at you like you're all weird?
Eventually they won't. They'll be used to seeing you. They'll be used to looking at you.
Yeah.
Do you try?
No, just I'm act on sometimes. I just do like odd things and bulky stuff.
But you'd always sit in front, and now we're friends, right? I didn't really have to talk him into taking this class this way. He wanted to take it online.
Yeah, just,
All I just had to do was suggest it, because we're friends, because you sit in front, and I interact with you. So now we're friends, because of propinquity. If he sat in the back of the room, I probably wouldn't even mention this to you, because I wouldn't feel close enough to you in order to do that. But all I had to do was mention it to you, and you were nice enough to take this class.
I might try it.
Yeah, try it. See if it works. It really does work. How about, do you have to be the same gender? No. It doesn't make any difference. As a matter of fact, when people get married, a lot of times they said, well, we were friends before we were intimate, before we became boyfriend and girlfriend. One reason that the propinquity effect works is because of a phenomenon known as the mere exposure effect. If you've never heard a song before and you listen to it, a lot of times you don't like that song. But if they play that song over and over again on the record, on the radio station that you listen to, eventually you're going to know that song. You're going to maybe not like that song, but at least you know that song. Once upon a time in a land far, far away, there were no People didn't have playlists. You didn't have a thing that you stuck in your ear so you listened to the same song over and over again. So if you wanted to hear music, you had to listen to the radio. So you listened to whatever was on the radio. Okay. So I can sing a lot of songs that I don't even like. I know that song. That's the sad part. And this song, and it becomes an earworm, of course. It gets into my head and I can't get rid of it. I hate that song. I wish I didn't have it in my head. But it's the mere exposure effect. When I was a child, my dad grew up in a very religious home, but he wasn't religious. After he came back from the war, he decided all that stuff was BS, is what he decided. So on Sunday, instead of going to church like he would have done when he was young, he would put on classical music, and we listened to classical music all day long. I know. And he had album after album of classical music. And it wasn't like he loved Mozart or Tchaikovsky or Wagner. I mean, he listened to everything. So when I grew up, and I didn't even think about it, but all Sunday we were listening to classical music. And it wasn't even registering in my head. But because I had heard that music before, I knew that music. The mere exposure effect. And then when I became a little bit more sophisticated, as I grew older, I started listening to the same music that my dad played while we were growing up. And I enjoyed it. Mozart, Tchaikovsky, Chopin, all of this music. And my mother would she would get mad and she would put on opera. Now, if you've ever listened to opera, it's like two people screaming at each other. I know. When you're a little kid, that's what it sounds like. That's why nobody eats broccoli, because it tastes so bad. When you're a kid, but as you get older, it tastes better. It starts tasting better. Your tastes change. This is mere exposure effect. I hated black olives. I tasted them 1 or 2 times and I didn't like them. My first wife ate them like they were candy. And because of that, because of the mere exposure effect, I started eating black olives. Now I love black olives, despite the fact it was my first wife, that crazy lunatic that liked black olives. I started liking black olives because my taste changed. People do not like coffee when they're little children. They tend to, because they don't like the taste. It's too bitter. But as they get older, then they start drinking coffee. Right? Their tastes change. Mine never has. I still hate coffee. Doesn't taste. It's too bitter. The more we are exposed to a stimulus, the more that we are attracted to it. This has been shown to be true for attraction to other people, foreign words, music, and the variety of inanimate stimuli. So all you need to do is be exposed. So the reality is that, and there's song after song after song, love songs that had to do with, when I first met you, I didn't like you. The more I was around you, the more then I started liking you, and then that like turned into love. Tons and tons of movies where the first interaction with that select individual was relatively negative, and then eventually it became a little more positive, and somebody was nice to somebody else, and all of a sudden, there you go. Now we've got a romance taking place.
So like, not interracial, but like arranged marriages, like how you said you almost marry your identical twin.
Right.
Do they like grow to look like each other?
They do grow to look like each other because they'll have the same, they're eating the same foods, probably the same amounts. They start exercising the same. So yeah, they start looking like each other. In essence, they start looking like each other. My current wife, when I first met my current wife, I insulted her the first time I saw her. She was an officer and I was enlisted, and I gave her a hard time. And today she says that was clever and that's why I was attracted to you. That's not what happened at all. She didn't like me any more than anybody else did. Everybody hated me, so she hated me too. But as I started being nicer to her, she tried harder to get me to like her, mainly because she was my boss. And here I seem to have this this anger toward her that didn't make any sense to her. So she kept coming into my office trying to get me to like her. And eventually, of course, it turned into, yeah, whatever. It turned into love, I guess. So, and she volunteered to take care of my kids. I had 2 kids and no wife. And I played softball, so she started watching my kids during the softball games. And she interacted well with my children, and that's probably the thing that attracted me to her more than anything else, was the fact that she could get along with my kids. My kids were easy to get along with, that wasn't the problem. But if it was somebody that was just trying to get to me, they weren't genuine, and my kids would read that, and they wouldn't like them, or they wouldn't want to interact with them. So if they're just trying to get into my britches, yeah, like that happens so frequently. Sorry, military people, you never know what they're going to do. The mirror exposure effect appears to be a cultural universal. Japanese and Americans appear to be equally likely to come to like those people with whom they interact most frequently. Americans and Japanese are about the same. So the more interaction you have with those individuals, and I talk about this all the time, we're all friends in here. I keep saying we're all friends in here. And the reality is, because we're in the same class, then potentially, yeah, we know each other's names, we like each other because we have interacted with one another. Therefore, we really are all friends in here, because we interact so frequently. And every Tuesday and Thursday, we get to interact. And for that reason, you're not only friends with the people in this class, but all your classes. The more you interact with them. The person that you probably don't interact very much with is the person that sits in the back of the room that doesn't say anything.
Brandon.
Yeah, and I tease Brandon about it all the time. Yeah, because I can't get him to smile. The funny thing is, he came to my office the other day and we had like an hour and a half conversation, and he laughed and smiled. It's really kind of funny. I get him in class, I can't get him to even crack a smile. Anyway, he's a really nice guy. He's really nice. It's just hard for him to interact in this kind of an environment. People tend to be attracted to those who are most like themselves, and this is known as similarity attraction effect. Okay, so we're talking about opposites attracting. The reality is it's relatively rare. Usually it's this thing. It's the similarity attraction effect. So we're attracted to people that are like us. So lo and behold, here you have Mexican ancestry, and who do you hook up with? A guy who's in the private network.
But we're like totally opposite, like really opposite, and we always said, oh, well, it's opposites attract, and we have like different likes and different beliefs and everything, but then,
You guys are always together, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
I mean, like, this is actually my first week in 2 years I'm alone.
Feels odd, doesn't it?
Oh, no wonder why you're like, what are you doing this weekend?
So the reality is, you and your husband are a lot alike, just a ton alike. It's the superficial things that you're not alike, but you're with each other all the time. If you go up to Montana, he's right there with you. He's not going to let you go up there all by yourself. And if you came down, if you were supposed to stay up there and he was supposed to come back down, you'd come back down with him, rather than stay up there with your crazy relatives. Yeah. So you're a lot more alike than you think you are. Yeah, you are. As painful as that is. Much research has shown that people are more likely to view someone as attractive either as a potential friend or as a romantic partner if both of them are similar in their attitudes, their economic background, their personality, their religion, their social background, and activities. I had that's not right. I had a ton of girlfriends. No, I didn't. I didn't have a ton of girlfriends. But I had potential girlfriends who rejected me because of my lack of religion. It happened over and over and over again. People that liked me, and they told me so. If you just convert to Christianity, I'd be all over you like mustard. Or whatever, I don't know. Yeah. So did I do it just for, sex? Hell no. I'm sorry. I didn't. Of course I didn't. I'm not goofy. Research that sought to determine whether North Americans or Japanese liked similar or dissimilar strangers showed that North Americans had a stronger attraction to similar strangers than the Japanese did. Now this is really kind of odd, but it's not if we think about it. In some studies, Japanese show a similarity attraction effect as well, but it is consistently weaker than North Americans. Now why in the world would North Americans be attracted to strangers more than the Japanese? What is it about the Japanese that makes them less likely to accept strangers? What is it about Americans that makes us more likely to have friends who are not like us?
Curious, maybe they're more curious about different religions, races, and everything.
How many races do they have in Japan?
Oh. They
Is
only
it
have
very
one.
closed? Is it because they're Japanese are kind of closed and Americans more open to
Exactly.
new experiences?
We've got a heterogeneous country, right? I mean, you walk down the street, you don't know if that guy's a Muslim, or if he's native, or if he's Mexican, or, I know, you have no idea. He's just got black hair. Could be an Italian.
My daughter was dating this guy and he looked exactly like a Muslim, and I didn't like him right when I met him. And I looked at him and I said, I said, can I ask you what your race is? And he looked at me and he goes, what do you think it is? And I said, Muslim. And he goes, no, he said, I'm Spanish. And I was like, what?
He's from Spain.
Yeah, his family, they're like maybe second generation. And I was looking at him, I was like, oh, okay, his last name was Padilla. Oh. And then, yeah, Padilla.
I had a goalie that named Padilla.
Yeah.
It's a very Spanish name.
But I was like, totally just eat him up if he was a Muslim. And then she was dating this other guy who was pure white. No offense.
No.
But he was pure white.
You're gonna make
His
me cry.
eyes were bluer than the Atlantic Ocean, and I
As blue as mine.
Oh, no, way bluer. I couldn't look at him straight in the face.
Because his eyes were spooky.
Yeah, and then he had like really long hair, and I didn't talk to my daughter for like 3 months because of this.
Was he really white?
He was really, really white. He did not have an ounce of anything else but just white.
Just like me.
If he would have had like, I don't know. Well, I don't know.
Cherokee. If he had Cherokee ancestry,
I mean,
it would have been okay, Jeff. It would have been fine.
I'm like really picky when it comes to my kids and who they're dating because I want my grandkids to be interracial, I mean, they can be part white, some part white, but they have to have something in them, like black or green or orange, or, but they can't be
Orange
Asian
people?
or Muslim or pure white. I'm so racist. I'm just
You
sitting
are.
here
You're so
telling you.
racist. My goodness gracious.
Oh my gosh.
We're all so shocked. I was going to ask your daughter out, but I guess I won't now. I'll be rejected by her mother. That's so sad. I'll be okay in a minute. All right. Well, you know about my family. Obviously, my family, they date their brothers and sisters, evidently, because they're all English, Irish, German, and French, and Belgian. My goodness gracious. So did we try to mix our population with, and who did I marry? I married 3 really Anglo people, as it turns out. My son had his DNA checked. I know, there's some Italian in my ex-wife. She claimed that she was Chickasaw. So my son was going to fill out an application and try to get a Native American scholarship. Because he had Chickasaw ancestry. As it turns out, he has 0 Native ancestry.
You can apply for the American Indian Higher Art Education scholarship,
Right.
claiming Native American,
You need a
Native,
census number.
No,
I mean,
no.
a CID number.
Because I have 2 students that are African American, or Africans, and they get the American Indian scholarship. I don't understand it.
I don't understand. The Japanese are very homogenous. 98% of those people in Japan are Japanese. There is another group in Japan that they pretend don't even exist. They were Caucasians from the north, the Ainu. Remember the people with the tattoos? Okay. They're pale, they're relatively pale. Japanese are actually they have more melanin in their skin. I know it looks yellow, but it's kind of a brown. So if they go outside and they spend time out in the sun, they turn brown. But we think of them as yellow, I guess. Anyway, but the people up north are Caucasian. They're not as white as I am, of course, but they're white. They're very relatively white. And they don't have nearly as much hair, so they tattoo their faces. As attractive as it is, a woman with a mustache. Hot stuff. In some studies, Japanese show a similarity attraction. Oh yeah, okay, I already talked about that. Yes, so we understand why the Japanese are weaker as far as strangers are concerned. As I told you, if you're not Japanese in Japan, then you are gaijin. You are a foreign. They say it translates to foreigner, but I know what it actually translates to. It actually translates to the man that sneaks in the window at night. That's what a gaijin is. So whether you're black or white or any other race, of course, or Chinese or Korean, they see you as a gaijin. Okay. Researchers have discovered that the most frequent topic of conversation is gossip about other people. Really? I know, I'm so shocked. Here we are talking about Brandon, he's not even here. Studies that track people's happiness over time find that their happiest times are when they are with others. So if you think of the most pleasant times in your life, it's probably sitting right here in class, I'm sure, because we're with other people. But it's not ever being alone. My favorite time was when I wandered off into the woods and got lost. And I was all by myself. No, it's not. Sorry. It's when you're with other people. Studies that track people's happiness over time finds that their happiest times are when they are with others. People's most emotionally wrenching experiences involve the breakup of relationships and the death of loved ones. And of course, the biggest tragedy we had on the Fort Belknap Reservation were a spat of suicides we had because of relationship breakups. As strange as that seems. People commit suicide because of relationship breakups. And it always seems to be basketball players. I know.
That kill themselves?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately.
The one that hung himself in the valley?
Yeah, the one that hung himself in the valley and they couldn't find him for like 3 days. Yeah. He was on YouTube because he busted
He
a backboard.
shattered the backboard.
He shattered the backboard, yeah, exactly. He was a nice guy.
He had a lot of potential. I don't know why he would do that.
I know. So what happened? His girlfriend broke up with him, so he went out in the valley and hung himself. Another guy had been a really good basketball player. He had a kid with somebody, and she decided she didn't want to have any more to do with him. And so what did he do? He walks out in the middle of the highway, walked out in the middle of 2 when a semi was coming by. And he walked right into the grill of that semi, going 70 miles an hour. Yeah, I know. Okay, relationships. So relationships cause all these problems. And I've broken up, just the 2 times I was divorced, But I didn't think of killing myself, because I had 2 kids at the time. And that was the last thing in the world I would
How do
do.
you get over that wrenching experiences? Like that, how can you get rid of it?
You can, it's got to dissipate over time. I mean, obviously, I'm still upset about my first wife, because I talk about her all the time. My second wife, I really wasn't that close to, and that's one of the reasons why I don't talk about her as much. Because we weren't really that close. I never felt that she really seemed to like me a whole lot. And when we were together, she was focused on me. But if we weren't, I could never trust her. I could never trust her because there were guys hitting on her all the time. I mean, it was a constant. So I never really felt that close to her. It was a struggle just to be married to her because I felt all the self-esteem, my ego. I felt like she was about to leave me or some guy was going to snatch her away. And there were a lot better looking guys than me, taller guys, more muscular guys, and that's always a possibility. Anyway, we need to stop right here and let me go downstairs and cry because you guys have upset me so much.
I see some chocolates. She'll be just fine.